good evening, and yet again, honeys, good evening. You already know who it is, but I don't mind giving you a slight reminder. It's your best friend, your good Judy, your next door neighbor, your niece, your cousin, your nephew, and recently I've been promoted to great auntie. It is Norman J. Liverpool IV, founder of Over the Top Living, and thank you so much for tuning in to What's the LGBT, honey, every Wednesday right here on my Facebook Live and on Over the Top Facebook Live at 7 p.m. Pacific. So before we get into this show, I want to let you know that again, I wanted to just provide a slight reminder about Evolve, which is my 5-week signature mentorship program. And when we're talking about the promises that I make to you for working with me, you are going to unleash your unicorn power. You're going to stand out and shine, own your own story, and walk in next level confidence. If you want to reserve your spot in the experience, you can see the website scrolling around the bottom of your screen. It is bit.ly/ready to evolve now. We start on Monday, so all registrants that register by Saturday will receive a 15% discount. So if you have any questions on exactly how the program works, or you have any questions at all, just reach out to me at norman@overthetopliving.com or just by sending me a direct message. So I'm gonna go really quickly through our segments because I'm excited to bring my special guest on. So this is the time of the show that we call the gag. This is where we talk about stuff that's newsworthy and themes. So Barclays has closed the bank account of a UK Christian charity, the Core Issues Trust, who offer LGBTQ conversion therapy, says the Premier Christian News. It follows a lot of criticism from LGBT activists who say the bank, the lead supporter of Pride in London for several years, was extremely hypocritical. They argue that supporting LGBT people with one hand while giving services to a charity that offers LGBT conversion therapy is wrong. The widely discredited practices sees vulnerable people subjected to shock treatments and other cruel tortures, among other emotional, counseling, and physical techniques. The promise and consistently failed to cure people of being gay, bisexual, trans, and all identities within the LGBTQ spectrum. The Core Issues charity based in Ireland rejects the name conversion therapy for its counseling and calls it one-to-one support. So shout out to Barclays, okay? You did the right thing. Now, I didn't think we were going to have this segment tonight, but the universe will always provide what you need. So now is the time we are going to do our artist spotlight. Now, I did not print this out, so bear with me, but I'm so excited to tell you a little bit about this artist. So this artist is IKP, the infamous king of positivity. And not only is he a podcast host, he has a daily IGTV video series, but he delivers his personal stories and passions in hopes of encouragement and love for people like him, LGBTQ, Black and Brown, HIV positive, marginalized, and oppressed. So last Friday, he released a single called Flaming Cheddar. And so I'm going to play a little bit of that for you now via SoundCloud. And you can definitely check him out on SoundCloud as well. So give me one moment while I get this on together here.
When it's toothless, never was the plug, I'm the drug. Was you stupid when I was getting used? Never felt like I was useless. Not your wedding bang, but they don't really bang out. It's just noticed and it's really cap. Nothing changed now. Little chocolate, little butter.
I don't think I played the sound.
The apple make the whole world mad. There's a mist between the black and the lip. X-Squad chromosomes, so they really splitting privilege. Yeah, I was born in the soul. They don't suffer like me. Heavyweight player can't suffer fools like me. Yeah, fools can't have you running fools every twice. Fools now black and a fool's paradise. I don't ever do shit. Half-ass as you were. Don't let have you betting on that black light.
put me back on. So that was just a clip of his song. So I invite you to connect with IKP on SoundCloud. The music is hot, and just connect with him. He's doing a lot of positive things for our community, and that is why I want to showcase this. So if you are an artist or you know an artist that wants to be showcased, just have him send me a direct message. We can do that. So now, y'all, I don't want to waste any more time because I want you guys to meet these special people. But before I go there, I just want to see what these comments are saying. Okay, all right, that's all right. So we have IKP actually tuning in saying that's him. And then this is how you can connect with him on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/IKP for president. I second that motion. Let's see. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I got my best friend, Jose, is out here. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Let's see who else we got. We got Dr. Gina Franklin Liverpool from Chicago, Brian Murphy here in Vegas. Thank you all so much for tuning in on this evening. Don't forget to share. Don't be stingy with all the fun. So now is the time where I'm going to introduce my special guest. So first we have DJ Lebayan Arvelo. He is AKA Zion Savage, and he's Mr. Las Vegas Pride 2019. He is legally married to his partner of almost 7 years, who also, his partner is Miss Las Vegas Pride 2019. They have a 5-year-old daughter who is biological to both of them, and he carried her and was born in 2015. DJ says he's tried his best to share his story or their story with their community and have made a huge impact. He's very proud to be visible for the people that who may not have the strength to be. So thank you, DJ. Also, we have Nick Selleck. Nick, his pronouns are he and him. He's 31 years old from Chicago, Illinois. Nick is a gay trans man who is a leader in the local trans community. In 2016, Nick founded the organization TMAC, Trans Masculine Alliance Chicago, which is now the largest organization in Chicago for trans men and trans masculine folks. He also volunteers with Lurie Children's Hospital as a mentor for trans youth while providing independent seminars for parents and families of trans individuals. Additionally, he has been a public speaker on trans identity for over 10 years in a variety of settings, including higher education, business, and religious organizations. In his free time, Nick enjoys playing guitar, reading tarot, camping, going to the beach, and spending time with his partner, who is soon to be his husband. And then last but certainly not least, we have Madam Miss Crystal Cassadine. Crystal Nicole Cassadine was born in Birmingham, Alabama in the late 80s. I see how she didn't put that year though. She had the pleasure of traveling all across the Southeast as an entertainer and has been an advocate for the LGBTQ plus equality since 2004. She attempted to start her transition in 2010. However, due to state laws and discrimination inside of the therapist's office, she was forced to postpone her transition until she moved to Washington in 2018. Her transition from male to female has been a hard journey, but she has learned so much about herself and would not change anything about her path. So I'm going to bring my special guest on, and then I'm going to share a little study with you. So I would like to welcome DJ, Nick, and Crystal. Hi, guys.
Hey.
So I wanted to, before we get into this discussion, I wanted to share something. So I was looking at the HRC website, and there was some statistics from a 2018 study published by the American Academy of Pediatrics revealed alarming levels of attempted suicide among transgender youth, with the highest rate among transgender boys and non-binary youth. The findings emphasize the urgency of building welcoming and safe communities for LGBTQ young people, particularly for transgender youth. More than half of the transgender male teens who participated in this survey reported attempted suicide in their lifetime, while almost 30% of transgender female teens said they attempted suicide. Among non-binary youth, 41.8% of respondents stated that they had attempted suicide at some point in their lives. Many transgender youth experience family rejection, bullying, harassment, or generally feel unsafe just to be who they are, all of which can be an added risk factor for suicide. Earlier this year, the HRC released its 2018 LGBTQ youth report, which detailed similarly alarming experiences, but also significant perseverance among the LGBTQ young people in the face of these daunting challenges. And the reason why is I was doing a lot of research for this show. And, like I was talking with you guys in the backstage, is I have a lot of trans women in my life, whether as friends or family. And I wanted to do some more research about trans men. So we'll definitely touch on that, but I wanted to share that study with you. Oh, wait, we got here. Email says, you got my attention. Thank you so much for tuning in. Jade Nazario, he was actually our first LGBTQ artist spotlight. Thank you for tuning in. And then this is for DJ. I love you so much. You are so handsome and sexy. Hold up, that's my brother-in-law. So anyway, I would like to give the floor to you guys. Introduce yourself aside from what I've said and let us get to know you.
Okay, who wants to go first?
You do, you're on the mic.
Oh, I guess I am on the mic. Well, for a lot of you that are tuning in right now, my name is DJ. You probably have seen me if you frequent quads a lot. So I happen to be the 5-foot wonder over there. Currently, I have also been doing photography. I've been doing the Pride thing. Just now, I actually had somebody tell me, "Oh, I got my chest surgery and everything," and I've helped. I can't even count how many people that I've helped in that whole journey, making all of us visible, not just one thing or another. I just, like to spend time here with my family. Quarantine is not that bad. There's always something to do for me. So, but I hope everybody is staying safe out there. Currently, that's pretty much all I do. And if you need some advice or, kind of a come to Jesus talk or something like that, just let me know. That's what I'm about.
I love that. Why don't you go, Crystal?
Hi, I'm Crystal. Like Norman said, I'm from Tacoma. Ain't nothing going on with me. I stay at home, I work, and that's about it. Quarantine has been interesting. I'm one of the few that have been classified essential, so I'm still working and all that good stuff. I want to go ahead and say thank both DJ and Nick for showing up. It's like I was telling Norman, we know so much about trans women, but we know diddly squat about trans men when it comes to what's going on and how you guys survive, basically. So thank you both for showing up and showing out.
Anytime.
Awesome. All right, Nick, you got the floor.
So hello, everyone. Nick, he, him pronouns, broadcasting live from Chicago from my apartment. So like Norman said, I'm very passionate about activism in the trans community, and especially with trans men and trans masculine folks. I transitioned, I don't know if I mentioned in the bio, but I transitioned almost 12 years ago. And I'm 31, so it hasn't been that, I wasn't that old when I transitioned, I guess. But I'm really passionate about, I'm basically the father of the community around here. That's kind of, people call me T-Mac Daddy. And
I can see that.
Yeah, I'm going for some daddy vibes. I don't know. And something I'm really excited about that I'm working on right now is there is an LGBTQ campground in Michigan called Camp It Resort in Saugatuck. And I'm trying to work with them to get more trans folks out there. I'm leaving tomorrow to go there, and I'm competing for Mr. Camp It Bear. Cool. So maybe the first trans guy to win that, we will see.
Awesome. Well, you definitely got to let us know how that goes.
I will.
So, there's so much to go into. We're just going to, I guess, just dive right in. And I just want to remind all of the people that are watching us, whether you're on my personal page or on the Over the Top Living page, please feel free to comment. If you comment, we will definitely put it up on the screen. You can comment here. If you want to be anonymous, you can email me or direct message me any questions that you have for our guest. So I would like you guys briefly to, well, not briefly, I don't want to say that. I would like you guys to talk a little bit about what that process looked like for you in terms of coming to terms with I'm trans. Like what did that, because I know for me as a gay man what that process looked like, but we'll keep that same order, DJ Crystal Nick. Like what did that process look like for you to come to that, to make that realization about your truth?
Hello, I am first again, apparently. I'm just kidding. Actually, I hope you guys can hear me okay. My voice doesn't carry, so. I actually had a different experience than a lot of other people have had. I was born in 1980, so I grew up in the 80s and everything. However, I knew exactly who I was when I was 3 years old. My family knew it. Sometimes they would like try to put me in a dress or something like that, and I'm like, what is going on? This is not right. No, and I would always just like, kind of tell people this is how I feel, this is who I am. And of course I would get like a backlash for it, but it is what it is. I do not know what it's like to be a woman at all, any type of female, nothing besides anything that would go on with my body. That's all that I do know. I faced adversity from a very, very young age just because of the fact of where I grew up. Like I grew up in, I guess it's the South, like North Carolina, Tennessee. So besides you're the only mixed race kid, or the only Asian kid or whatever, now there's this other stuff going on. It was weird because my mother, for whatever reason, she would out me anytime that she could get. And I had to deal with that kind of stress, as a very young child. I didn't know for a very long time what transgender was. I didn't know the word for it, but I knew there was me. And I didn't think that there was anybody else, just like everybody,
Right.
I was actually watching YouTube one day, either when it came out or whatever it was. And I, would just look at, surgeries and all. I was like, oh, is that the word for it? Is that transgender? Because all these people they have the same thing that I do. They're talking about the same things that I do. It's not what I'm looking at, and Wikipedia tells me or everybody else what it is, because it is not entirely correct at all. So I started hormones when I was 21 years old, and that was in 2001. But as I lived my life as a straight man, stealth, of course, whether people are looking at you funny or not, pre-transition or after. I don't know. I realized, I'm dating these girls and they're just weird and they think that I'm lying to them. And I'm like, no, I just want you to get to know me and not judge me on anything else. And I went through something, and then I actually stepped out into the gay community just by accident. And I was like, oh, well, there's drag queens, there's this, there's that. Because if I'm raised in the 80s by like old school parents, the only thing that I know is like ugly, big old drag queens or leather daddies. That's what gay is. That's all you get. I had no idea there was like all this other stuff. So I came to terms with being okay with that, and I just didn't care. I came out, didn't lose very many people. And then when I came to Vegas, I met a few people, and I decided I'm just going to be like truthful. I am a trans man, whether you want to date me or not, or be my friend. My whole philosophy is you either like me or you don't. If you don't, I don't care. I don't lose sleep over it, and I hope nobody else does either.
Okay. I know that's right. Well, wait till just kick it off then. All right, Miss Crystal Cassadine.
I have the stereotypical coming to terms with myself. As far as I can remember, I played in my grandma's closet. I played in my mom's closet. I was always the one wearing my grandma's Easter dresses and everything. And granted, adults would come in and be like, "What the hell are you doing?" And so I suppressed a lot of everything that I felt for a good long while. And it wasn't actually until I found drag that I was able to explore that feminine side of everything. I would say about 4 years into my career, they were like, I will never forget. I was walking into one of the clubs and I was already done up and everything. And a friend of mine came up, she's like, "Are you on the moans?" I'm just like, "No, bitch, what the fuck are moans?" so, so we actually had a very interesting conversation. She's like, "Girl, you're trans." I'm just like, "What is that?" Like at this point, I'm like in college at this point, and I'm just like, "What the hell is trans?" So when I tried starting my transition, and like I said in my bio, like the I very distinctly remember sitting in front of my therapist, and she's like, "I'm not going to write you a letter because you haven't proven to me that you're a woman." And I looked her dead in the face. I'm just like, "I don't care what I've proven to you. I know what I am. And if you're not going to give me what I need to get what I want, I'm going to find it somewhere else." And that kind of led me down this whole path of the best way to put it is like illegal medications and whatnot. Like I got my hormones from Mexico. Yeah, that too. I got my hormones from Mexico and everything else, not really knowing what I'm injecting into myself. And it wasn't until I moved up here to Washington that I was able to medically start my transition the way it needed to be. I've lost quite a few people actually. But at the same time, I'm also the kind of person, if you're not going to stay in my life for the long haul, regardless of what I do with my body and my own person, I don't need you. I was fine before you. I'll be just as fine after you.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm happy that you're living in a place now where you're able to do what you need to do to live your life. That's awesome.
Sugar, it is so much easier up here.
I'm glad for you. All right, Nick, what you got?
So when I was younger, I didn't know what trans was. I grew up in the 90s and we didn't know what transgender meant. I was a tomboy. I was just tomboy. I wore like skateboard pants or what, the Jinkos or whatever. I just wanted to wear boys' clothes and like skateboard and play hockey and stuff. Yeah, like that's nobody batted an eye because it was, for people assigned female at birth that present more masculine as children. They're like, oh, it's a phase, she'll grow out of it, whatever. Well, I didn't. I did go through. Yeah, I went through a period from when I was 12 years old to probably 19 where I really tried to do the girl thing, and I had like long hair, wore makeup, all that, and I was miserable like the whole time. So finally, when I got to college and I moved to Chicago, I started meeting people that were LGBT. I learned what LGBT meant. I didn't even know what that meant till like right before I graduated high school, and I was like, okay, so maybe I'm a lesbian, and I tried that out. My friend actually says that I took LGBT as a checklist, and that's pretty accurate. Yeah, so I've been like, I was a straight girl, and then I was bi, and then I was a lesbian, and then I figured out when I was 20 years old that I was trans. Actually, yeah, it was LGBT was my checklist. Yeah. I just figured out I was trans because I knew what trans was by that time, but I didn't think I was. I was that much. I just didn't know who I was at that point. So what led me to that actually was tarot cards, believe it or not. I had never done it before. And based on a reading I had one time that I made a very big decision to break up with the next girlfriend, that led me down this whole path of self-discovery. And I still read tarot cards, 12 years later. And I only started hormones 5 months after I came out as trans, because when I knew, I was like, this is it. Absolutely. I was 20. I was impulsive, and it served me for the best, I would say. It's the best thing I've ever done. 12 years later, never looked back. Yeah. So one thing I do want to say is I'm very privileged to have a lot of support from my family and friends. I didn't think I would. Thought I would lose a lot of people. I was very afraid, but I just did it anyway. And people have been amazing. And that's part of what motivates me to volunteer and give back to my community.
Wow, that's awesome. And shout out to you again, just because you're from my hometown. So we have a question, and it's actually something that I was going to bring up anyway. But Brian Murphy says, "Do any of the panel come from a religious family? And if so, how did you navigate that as a child? And did you change once you transitioned?" So I think that is interesting. Like, I think a lot of times, at least in the stories that I hear of people that are part of our LGBTQ plus community that have come up in any sort of like religious or spiritual background and have been bashed or, you know, treated negatively by that religious body, they kind of go away from that. And so we're going to keep our rotation back to you, DJ. So, was religion a part of your upbringing? And if so, how did you navigate that?
Actually, religion was not a whole big thing for me. I my home life is just kind of strange. Like my mom would like get me dressed. So, like on Christmas or something, be like, "We're gonna go visit the house of God." And I'm like, "Okay," and we'd sit in the parking lot, and that was about it. There have been people in my life that, have tried to like kind of get me towards that and everything, and I don't have any problem with anybody's faith, anybody's belief, their spirituality. I don't, as long as you have faith in something, I'm cool with that. But I have gotten, people, well, you probably need to like just pray this away and just be yourself. It's like
Right.
I hate to say it, but you're an abomination, right? What? So, I mean, it's only been people that have come and gone. I myself am not very religious. I'm rather spiritual. So I haven't really touched on that too much. I mean, there are people that protest and do whatever, and still they don't ever know who they're talking to or about. So they always just want to say, well, those people are going to hell no matter what. So that's pretty much where I stand on that. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you definitely did. You definitely did. What about you, Crystal? Did like spirituality or religion, did that have anything to play with your upbringing?
I'm from Alabama. I mean,
so Southern Baptist.
Very. I mean, on our major highway going from Montgomery to Birmingham, there's a sign. They've painted this big red devil that says, "Go to church or you're going to hell," basically. It's hysterical. But I tried the religion thing. I did. I went to vacation Bible school. I went to church. I sang in the choir. Stereotypical stuff. I mean, whatever. But I personally never had that one-on-one with a preacher or rabbi or anything saying, well, this is what this says. It's always been my aunts and my uncles and people that in all honesty really don't matter now. Like, they're the ones that have always had the issues with me being gay or trans or whatever the case may be. I will say that religion caused me to attempt suicide a couple of different times because I was like, well, this is what my family is. This is what I need to be, but this is what this says. And it just didn't sit right at all. So I actually, at 10 years old, set on this journey of trying to figure out what exactly was going on. So I went and talked to rabbis. I went to talk to preachers, priests, anyone that I could that could kind of define what the scripture was saying. And it wasn't until I realized that, and I'm not going to go too far down this path, but it wasn't until I realized that it had been translated so many different times, mistranslated, taken out of context. It's again, I'm not going down that road, but I finally just said, fuck it. Like, this doesn't tell me anything. I know who I am. At the time, I was a gay man. I know who I am. I don't need a book to tell me anything. So it's short answer, yes.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the short and the long answer. What about you, Nick?
I'm not religious. I'm, like DJ said, very spiritual. My family is Jewish. and I was raised Jewish. And right now, I don't identify with any particular religion. I think there are beautiful and terrible things about each one of them. And I believe that as long as, like Crystal said, as long as I'm being true to myself and being, treating others with good intentions and, all that, it's interesting though, because Judaism, it depends on who you ask, but in my experience, most people don't have a problem with LGBT folks, at least like with the Reform and conservative Jewish people I grew up with, and that I'm grateful for that. And it's interesting though, because my partner that I'm getting married to is from Mississippi, and he was also raised Southern Baptist, and his family, I was very afraid to come out to his family as trans, but they've been very accepting of him being gay. And then they found out I was trans maybe like 2 or 3 years into it. And they were just super like affirming and like accepting of me and like our relationship. And I think the people around us, religious or not, have learned a lot from my identity and his identity and our relationship.
I love that. I love that. I want to switch over to, so for any of you guys or any of you folks that have ever been on my shows, I'd like to kind of get an idea of what my guests want to talk about. So I asked my guests a couple of topics that they want to talk about. And so I kind of want to get into this. And I want to start with Crystal had sent dealing with society's inabilities. And one of the things that came out, I mean, I know that you touched on, like black market hormones and things like that, but I really was intrigued by the topic of dead naming and misgendering. And the reason why is I did not know what dead naming was. Like, I knew that obviously like you should never call someone by their former name, but I did not know that there was actually like a term for it. So have you had to deal with like how do you deal with dead naming and misgendering and all of that? Like how do you deal with that on a day-to-day basis? And Crystal, because you presented this, I want to start with you.
Personally, I deal with it in a couple of different ways. The most common is I just don't answer to it. I live my life by the saying, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. The worst case I've had, though, was actually on my birthday, early June. I was at work, and my mom and I had gotten into this huge argument about the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that was going on here in Seattle, the looting and all that stuff. And I said something that she didn't necessarily agree with. And when she retaliated, I removed her from my Facebook. So then, like the typical Karen she is, she came and called me and she was like, why did you? She called me and she's like, why did you remove me? And so we had that argument. And then she dead names me in the middle of the conversation. And I stopped her. I was like, I need you to stop and realize I'd come out to her at this point like 4 or 5 months prior.
Before we go on, can you I want to make, coming from your mouth, can you tell us what dead naming is?
Dead naming is basically, and a couple of different people will take it a couple of different ways. I personally define it as intentional or unintentional use of a former name. In malicious or accidental, it doesn't really matter what your intentions are. I've given you my name. I've given you my pronouns. Use them. It's disrespectful to disrespectful to misgender and dead name. It's a sign of not being supportive. Like, it's everything that all four of us are working against. And it's a negativity that you just don't need in your life. Bottom line. That being said, like, once she had dead named me, I was like, you've had 4 or 5 months at this point. You should know my name. You should know my pronouns. My name is Crystal. And I hang up on her. I slam the phone down. I actually cracked my phone. I was kind of pissed, but whatever. I finish my face because I'm doing my face at work. I go to work. She calls me. I ignore it. And then from the time it takes me to get from the restroom to my office, she sends me a message that says, "Don't worry about me. I'm dead to you." And on my birthday, mind you. So that's been the worst case for me. And at this point, I'm just like, okay, well, if I'm going to treat everyone else like they don't matter, or I'm not going to answer to this, then I'm going to do the same thing with you. So it's been a very interesting adjustment, I'll say. But it's been so liberating.
Good for you.
So
now, Nick, how has this been for you? And I want to applaud you for having the courage to start your transition so young, and to me that is still so young, you know.
Mhm.
So I give you like big props for that. But how do you deal with misgendering or dead naming? And what is your definition of dead naming?
I definitely agree with what Crystal defined it as, unintentional or intentional use of an old name or something they don't want to be called, be it gender pronouns or whatever, names. I actually don't have a dead name, so I'm like a bad example. I call it my birth name just because it was Nikki, and like people still call me Nikki because it was one letter difference. It was so gender neutral that like at first I wasn't okay with being called that, but now, and again, for those out there, don't think it's okay to call trans people by their birth name unless they specifically say they don't mind. Like me, I'd rather be called Nick. People call me Nikki. I'm like, whatever. I don't care. But with the she thing, like I don't get called she unless I'm at the gay bar and they're like, oh, who's she? And I'm like, oh, me? You know, like I don't care. Like, that's fine. I don't mind that. I think it was really hard when I first came out. Again, that was when it was really hard. But like again, that's that level of privilege that I don't have to tell people I'm trans. They don't have to know that I've changed my name. And yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And what about you, DJ? First of all, do you identify with the same definition of dead naming as Crystal, and also talk about how you've dealt with misgendering or dead naming?
Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, why else would you do it unless you want to be malicious or whatever? I understand people make mistakes, whether it's family members or whatever, but yes, it's definitely malicious. None of us like it. So I personally have not had too many situations where I have been misgendered or dead named because, you know, when I moved here, I've been the same for 35 years. So the only people that would really do that would be family. But um, I have a particular problem when there are trans people that I know or whatever, and people maliciously dead name them or they misgender them. They do not know who they're talking to. A lot of times people don't even know that I'm trans. That's fine. But you know, I get in them all the time. I'm like, dude, why would you do something like that? Oh well, there's no excuse for it. So
Right.
I just want you to imagine right now that I was talking to you about something, kicked you in the balls, and now your stomach hurts really bad, right? Yeah, it's kind of like that when you dead name or misgender somebody. So since it doesn't happen to me, that's fine. But if it happens to anybody like around in my presence or something, I get people together. I don't care. I'm the one with
Gather
the
them
big.
up.
Yeah, I make sure that people know. I make sure that if they have arguments or anything like that, then you know what? You just don't need to put this person's mouth or name in your mouth if you're just going to be disrespectful. Don't do it. Don't do it around me. You can leave now.
Right.
So
Wow.
I just stand up for other people, especially in my position, you know, from what I do here in Vegas, not only, you know, with the crown and everything, but the position that I hold at Quads, I try my best to educate people and give them positive energy. And, you know, some people come to me with things, some people don't, but if that's the only thing that I can do, then I try my best to do it.
Okay. So we had like there was a couple different items like on dating. So I think we're gonna come back to that, but I really want to go into what Nick sent. And I'm gonna put this on the screen because I thought that it was really clever how he sent this to me. So I want to, this is what he sent. And so I want to talk about the invisibility of trans men. And like I say, I'm very, forthcoming. I don't know many trans men, and which is why I'm very grateful for this experience. So Nick, talk to us about this, about the invisibility of trans men.
Yeah, I once wrote a blog post for my website that was titled "Passing is a Double-Edged Sword." And I think what I mean by that is, for me personally, and a lot of us trans people out there in general, we want to pass, right? We want to, and that's like not even the best term to use for it, but we want to be read and we want to be, recognized for our authentic genders that we see ourselves as, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So in that way, like people look at me and I get this comment all the time. Oh my God, you're trans. I never knew. I could never tell. Sometimes they like say, I just thought you were a guy, which I'm like, I am. But
Right.
Yeah. So I think like it's really and it's interesting that we have, DJ here who said that he is stealth. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it's just that you don't disclose, right, that you're trans most of the time to most people. For me, I'm like the opposite. I like want people to know I'm trans. If they don't know, I feel uncomfortable, and that's just how I am.
Right.
I have a tattoo of, if you can see it, of the trans symbol, and people still don't know that I'm trans. I could have it tattooed on my forehead, and they'd be like, "You're a great ally." I'd be like, "Thank you."
I'm actually not still.
So I
thought you said you were. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It like I said, my voice doesn't carry very well, so
Okay, I thought you said you were stealth, but just so people knows what that means. Some trans men are stealth, and I'm not. But at the same time, it's like one of those things. It's each situation you have to kind of navigate. Do I tell this person? Do I not? And kind of what could happen from that. And then half the time people have like never met a trans guy before. And they're like, wait, what? And it's like opportunity to educate, or it's like, I'm in my third cocktail. Can we do this later?
So really quick, we're gonna come back to this, but we got a question, which I'm really eager for us to get into. Dr. Gina Franklin Liverpool, she is going to actually be a guest on my show next week. Talking, the title of that show is Over the Rainbow. I'm a parent of an LGBTQ plus person. Not only is she a parent of an LGBTQ plus person, she has 2 gay children, one of which is me, and one of which is my sister.
Shout out.
And so she asks, what is the difference between transgender and gay? And Crystal, I would like you to kick this off because when you were just recently talking, you specifically identified as a gay male previously, and now you are a transgender woman. So we're gonna start there. We're gonna go around, and then we're gonna come back to the invisibility of trans men. So can you and remember, this is Mama. So break it down for Mama, Dr. Gina.
The easiest way for me to explain it is your sexuality, which is you're gay, you're lesbian, you're bisexual, the 3 big ones. Those are the outside. That's how you love, or who you love, excuse me, it's who you love. When it comes to gender identity, it's something completely different. It's how you feel about yourself. So I guess an easier way would be your sexuality is how you feel about other people and how you love other people, whereas your gender identity is how you feel about yourself, how you love yourself. It's very much so the same between gender and sex. Gender, again, is a very personal, internal thing, whereas your sex is what's between your legs, basically. And that's a really, really, really bad way to put it, but for the masses.
And I totally get that. And Nick, you had told us that you kind of went down the checklist. So as someone, no, and this is interesting. And my mom says 100%. So thank you, Crystal, for sharing that. So as someone who identified as a lesbian and bisexual, and now is a gay trans man, and I think that's a good example for this question because, Dr. Gina, you can be transgender and gay. And so can you talk a little bit about that, about how that you can be both and how those things can kind of work together?
Sure. I think a lot of people tend to conflate, like Crystal said, the concept of gender identity and sexual orientation. Like Crystal said, gender is who you are, and sexual orientation is who you love, so to speak. I think for me, I confuse that too, right? I'm like, okay, I know I'm masculine. Does that mean I like girls? I confuse that too. And then all the while, I knew I liked men, but I didn't want to be with a man as a woman.
Boom.
And yeah, so it's completely different. And I had to figure that out, by going through that process. Because after I first transitioned, I was straight. I was dating females. And this, my partner now is really the first serious cisgender male I've been in a relationship with. And he's gay. He's, does not like women. And same with me now. I realize I'm not really attracted to women like that. But I like men. I'm attracted to men. That would include, transgender men too. It's not just about genitalia. I just like masculine people. And it took a long time to figure that out.
Wow. And DJ, so I'm curious about your perspective too, because as you mentioned, towards the beginning of the show that you were straight and then you were introduced to the gay community. So can you talk about your experience and your kind of definition of the difference between transgender and gay?
Easiest way that I can put it, that is summed up in all ways. Sexuality is who you go to bed with, and gender is who you go to bed as.
Oh, wait a minute. That's it. Wait. Now say that again.
Sexuality is who you go to bed with, and I believe gender is who you go to bed as. So rather,
I had to put that on the screen for these children.
Oh, it's the children. So just navigating that whole thing for me, I mean, like I said, I always knew who I was, and even if I was a little bit different, because my whole thing is, well, there are people that are born without arms and all this other stuff. So whether you're born without certain body parts, does that not make you a certain person or whatever? It's hearts, not parts. Really, it's that easy. I mean, I had to just kind of figure out what was going on with myself because I was conditioned and raised to gay is bad, this and this and that. And, I would either look at things or just whatever. And I'm like, But the thing was, I got my heart broken one too many times by one too many females. And then they're like, oh, well, why don't you date like lesbians or bisexual girls? And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Do you know why? Because they will appreciate me not as a man. They will appreciate me for the parts that I do have. I don't want that. So, I like feminine energy. So, whether it's women or drag queens or whatever, or, feminine boys or whatnot, I just happen to like people in general. So, I can't really, it's sexuality and gender is just like I said, it's just who you go to bed as and who you go to bed with, pretty much.
I think that was such a great explanation. And I just want to point out, Nick, Dr. Gina Liverpool says, okay, Nick, I'm trying to get it. You are helping me understand and appreciate everyone. She then says, Ote, DJ. She also said, where there was another one. Crystal, thank you for sharing. And then my mom says gay is N-O-T bad. I know that's right, mama. And I'm so blessed to have the parents that I have. It was not always like this. And so I really appreciate being able to have, like my family lock my lock arms with me. Oh, we have another question. What about the difference of drag versus trans? People always mix the two things. So I'm going to let Crystal take this one because she is an entertainer, and you perform in drag, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So talk to us about the difference, honey. This is making me think of Tu Wong Fu. So talk to us about the difference, and thank you, Dr. Gina Liverpool, for that great conversation starter. So Crystal, what about the difference between drag queens versus trans, or drag kings versus trans? Just drag versus trans.
I honestly feel like, first off, I'm going to start with why I feel like people get them so confused all the time. A lot of people don't see us outside of a club for one reason or another. So when they come out and they see us, that's all they see. So they think, they automatically think, oh, well, that's a woman, so she's trans, or that's a man, so he's trans, or we don't know what that is, so it's an alien. So like it's a very fine line for me. Personally, drag is what I am on stage. It could be fish drag, it could be high horde southern drag, it could be Eskimo drag, I don't know what that is, but like it could be whatever. Drag is art. Drag is an expression of emotion, of music, of everything that, without getting too political, the government is trying to defund right now. Like it's so much more than just this. It's makeup, it's hair, it's tights that are so freaking small that, oh my God.
Baby, remember them dancer tights, that new skin? Baby. And you had to put 3 pairs of them to keep your pads in place.
You only wear 3?
Oh, well.
Only 3?
Are you even doing drag? But no, it's so much more than what you see on stage. It's a whole production with one person. Trans is my day-to-day life. Yes, when I'm on the bus, I lip sync because I don't want to bother other people. But but it's expression. Whereas for me, at least, being trans is internal feel. Yeah.
And the thing is, I get that because for those of you that do not know, I performed in drag. Oh, Crystal, she says, yes, I salute y'all for being you. Thank you.
Mama.
I performed in drag for 4 years. And, it was probably one of the funnest times of my life. I mean, you couldn't tell me my shit didn't stink when I put on a wig and put some lashes and a little bit of rouge on that mug, So I want to, so I totally get that. But I want to ask, Jonah says, your husband says this topic makes me want to add my point of view. Where is he?
He's downstairs.
Tell him to come upstairs.
You just did. He's watching.
Jonah, come upstairs. You can definitely join the conversation. Bring your daughter to get up. Well, I don't know if
daughter's at grandma's. Oh, she's in Utah.
Oh, okay. Well, come on up and get up here because you are a drag queen. She is my sister, Miss Aloha Savage. She is Miss Las Vegas Pride 2019. And she also is my drag sister. And I always point out that I was the first Savage daughter. Wow. But I'm so proud of Aloha for carrying on our family name.
I think another way you could say it is I get paid to be in drag. I don't get paid to be me.
Right. So while we wait on Jonah to come up, Vanessa Jones says, wait, I'm confused. So drag is a job? Also, the phrase sexuality is who you go to bed with. But if you are into all people, how can that be better explained? Also, let me be clear. I love you all and have seen all Norma Zenobia shows. She's just trying to understand. So I guess let me see. Vanessa, you done gave us a lot of questions here. No, I'm just kidding. So I don't think that necessarily she was saying drag is a job, because I mean, there's a lot of people that do drag that don't perform. I would say, like Crystal said, it's more of an expression. It's more of an art. For me, it was art. Like for me to shave my face and get that mug beat and start on a blank canvas and really learn my face and learn how to maneuver stuff. That is what it was for me. And then she says, but if you are into all people, but I mean, I guess that would be that's you, Vanessa. If you are into all people, then that is your sexuality.
There's more to being a sexual being than just being gay, straight, or bi.
Yeah,
we have pansexuality, sapiosexuality, and so many others. I mean, that's why the gay alphabet is like 1,800 letters long now.
Right.
I don't have time to do all that. Well, so that I just say love people. I love all people. If I think it's beautiful, then I don't care what it is. Why can't everybody do that? I have to use the bathroom. Thank you.
Well, this is Jonah. So this is Jonah. Jonah is my drag sister, and he's married to DJ. So I want pause. I don't know why my mom said pause. So Jonah says, this specific topic makes me want to add your point of view. So Jonah, what is your point of view?
I feel like the reason why it gets so kind of muddled is people think that it's one and the same. People think that trans people are drag queens and that drag queens are trans people. Whereas you can have me or you could have Crystal. We're both drag queens. Drag queen, like she said, is an art form. It's not a way of life. It's more this way.
Oh yeah, come on, plug.
But it's more of an art form, and some people do find it as a job. Some people do make a whole career out of it. Some people go and just make a few coins, and some people just get and dragged a tiptoe. Whereas being a trans person, that's not something that you put on and you take off at the end of the night. When I come home, all of that comes off, and I am who I am. I identify as a male, so it's not something that I keep on all day. I'm not a trans person, whereas a trans person, they don't take it off. Yeah, they might use a face wipe or two, but they're still the same person. Whereas me with all of that on is more of
like a persona.
Yeah, a persona, or
a character.
My side.
So Jonah, since we have you, since we have you on, I would like to know your perspective of being married to a trans man and raising your family. I mean, you guys have a beautiful 5-year-old daughter. And I mean, girl, what's the tea? Literally.
For me, like, to kind of go back on something that Nick had said, with the whole stealth thing and whatnot, and like he doesn't he doesn't really like when people will say, "Oh, I never knew that you were," or whatnot. I apologize, because that is one of the first things that I told DJ when he had told me. I found out through the grapevine, because when I first met him, I didn't know that he was. I seen him as the cute Filipino boy that he is, and that was that. And then getting to know him, he was dating somebody that I knew, and I heard it through the grapevine. Oh, so, because he is this, how does this work? And I'm sitting there, we were all three of us was drag queen. I was doing my makeup, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, one, I didn't know. And two, what is it any of your business anyway? Why are you asking how that works? What I do in my bed is what I do in my bed. Regardless of whether I present as male or I want to flip flop and be the bottom. That's nobody's business. So that being said, one day he finally told me, and it was actually the 1-year anniversary of our Tracy's passing. We were celebrating and we were drinking a Heineken for Tracy.
And that was our drag mother.
Yes. We were drinking a Heineken in remembrance of her. And he was like, I'd like to tell you something. And I kind of knew where it was going, but I didn't want to just be like, oh, I already know. Because I don't want to dismiss this moment for you. So he told me, and he was like, I just wanted to let you know I'm trans. And I'm like, okay. Like, that doesn't bother me. Our drag mother, she was trans.
Yeah,
She was taking her hormones and whatnot. Plus, at the time, she was dating a trans person.
A trans man, yeah.
It's not something that was new to me. So it was what it was. And I had a conversation with my mom before we even had started dating. And she was like, what if somebody like DJ or Andy was into you? And all my life, like, I didn't come out until I was 20 something. So all my life, I always said that I wanted to be loved by somebody who loved me the way that I loved them. But never did I know that I was interested in men. I just thought I was more effeminate because the way that I was raised. And at the time I was like, it wouldn't bother me. I would go for it because it's somebody that loves me for the way that I am. And then I thought to myself a little while later, and I was like, would I be okay with it? Because as a gay guy, this is the one thing that you're interested in. And I was like, I don't know. And then we started dating. And it was that moment when it was about to happen. And I told myself, this is how you know. Either you like it or you don't. We gonna find out right now.
Oh, well, you must have liked it, baby, because 7 years later, honey.
We got a ring on it.
Right.
The way that it happened,
Exactly, guy, he's been there.
the way that it happened to me in my eyes was never what he has or doesn't have. What I seen when it was happening was, this is a man, and that's what it is.
I love that.
Almost 8 years later, we're now married for almost 2 years. We have a 5-year-old daughter. For me, like I said, it's hard because I didn't know that he was. So that was my first, like, oh my God, I never knew. But then I wanted to shout it out to the rooftops and tell everybody, because I'm like, this is my, at the time, my boyfriend, then my fiance, my husband. And I want everybody to know who he is, and I'm proud of who he is. And at first, he's had a journey, because at first he didn't want nobody to know. And then now here we are, Mr. and Mrs. Pride, and that is one of the things that he's recognized for being, because we're kind of showcasing our family and the uniqueness of that. So we both grown a lot, and I'm so grateful for that. You guys had talked about another thing, and it was kind of about like outing people, and people don't see or know that he is. But the one problem that I have when it comes to that is there are some trans people who like to point it out and be like, oh, did you know that he is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what DJ was saying.
That's not for you to tell anybody. That's for him, or for Crystal, or for Nick. It's not your story to tell. And that's my biggest problem on it all. I'm his husband, so I'll tell anybody that I want to, but I'm not just some friend, some random person. Don't go around telling people's business, because if they wanted everybody to know, then
Even if you're trans, please don't do that, because that's happened to me a lot of times. Other trans people will be like, oh, you see that guy over there? And I'm like, okay.
So, Jonah, I want to thank you so much for coming on and giving your perspective. And I just want to, while I have you two, before we get right back into our show and begin to wrap it up, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. I've known you, man, if you've been with DJ for 7 years, that means I've known you at least for 10. And so, it's almost like we kind of grew up together, because I moved here at 21. I was, Hot Mess Express and, doing my thing.
and then bopping.
You know what I'm saying? Putting on a rubber band.
We live next door to his dad.
Yeah, yeah. So y'all know how we get down, but it's just so amazing to see, fast forward. And I just want to tip my hat off to you men, Jonah and DJ. You have a beautiful family. Your daughter is gorgeous. And thank you, Jonah, for popping on to give us your perspective. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. So I want DJ to go really back. We wanted to go back in terms of the invisibility of trans men, and then we're going to give some advice, and then we're gonna bid adieu. So we had left off with Nick talking about. Oh, did I save that banner in? Did I erase it? I erased it. I'll make it again. But what are your thoughts about the invisibility of trans men?
I don't know why it was so invisible, actually. No, I'm just kidding. The invisibility part, I think Nick can agree. A lot of it is safety. A lot of people, they're gonna go stealth, and even women do the same thing. Not as much, you know what I mean? Because who doesn't want to be a beautiful woman? Well, not me, but you know what I mean.
Right.
And yeah, for some reason, the stigma is totally different. Even if it's like, okay, there's this man that's going to transition into a woman. Maybe she doesn't look a certain. Okay, that's fine. But the things that they say about that is totally different about what they would say as for a trans man. It's like, okay, so you want to be a man. No, that's not going to happen. You don't have this. It's just the toxic masculinity and everything that everybody will say to you or just whatever. It's just like, well, you're a girl. You cannot be a man. And it's different when it's the other way around. They want to say, oh, well, now you want to be a woman. So this is your problem. But since a lot of trans men that are coming up or whatever, they've got to wait for, their puberty to happen and all of this stuff. But in the middle, it's like there's just a girl here trying to fit into a man's world. And that's where the invisibility is coming from. And then it's so funny that even if you are visible, like I am very visible. Squirrel. I'm very visible. And still people to this day, they don't know that I'm trans or just whatever. And I mean, I try my best to be visible. We have Laith Ashley. We have a few other high profile trans men. We've got that show Pose and all, but they still don't have trans men.
But listen, I'm so glad you mentioned Pose. Nick, have you seen Pose?
I've seen part of it.
So the reason why I ask is because they're literally on, there's a big thing happening because none of the trans cast. So I don't know if you know, were nominated for tons of Grammys or is it Emmys? Emmys. Okay. So they were nominated for a bunch of Emmys. Billy Porter, who a lot of people say that when I be in my vibe, I remind them of him, and some other different categories. However, none of the trans women were nominated. And there was a huge, backlash on social media where people were calling out the Emmys, like, how when you have Dominique Jackson and all of these amazing trans women actors portraying the trans experience, how did they not? And so then they were talking about, Laverne Cox was the first trans nominee. She didn't win, but she's still the only one to have held that nomination. So that's a whole nother thing, when we're talking about the trans experiences, about the recognition, for doing the same thing.
I don't know why people just want to kind of brush it under the rug. It's just to whatever you want to call normal people. It's just something that's different and they're not ready for, but I'm going to say it right now. They're not ready for the hybrid people. We are the hybrid people. That's just what it is. It's just like X-Men. You all know the story. It's the same. You guys are afraid of what you don't understand. And then you're going off of what you're feeling and thinking. And on the other hand, they're going off of what everybody else is feeling and thinking. When All they want to do is just walk among everybody else, have the same joys in life, have the same rights and everything like that. I mean, I just tell people sometimes, because I work at Quads, is that a guy? Is that a girl? I was like, well, why don't you just call it like you see it? That's the easiest way if you're not sure. Okay. They will correct you, you know what I mean? But don't do it like maliciously or anything like that. It's just safety is where that invisibility is coming from for trans men, because a lot of us are little, a lot of us are some take the hormones better than others, and people just associate certain things. People are hateful and mean. If you're 5 foot nothing or 5'2" and haven't grown up like I have, a lot of times you don't want to go into a room full of men and, hey, my voice is cracking and whatever, and I'm 30 years old. It's a very disheartening situation to go through, because you know what I mean. It's like, okay, little girl, what are you trying to do now? I've been in situations where people have known whatever, I go play football or whatever with the neighborhood kids, and it's like, all right, well, let's hit this one as hard as we can. You want to come into this world? Well, you need to freaking do it.
Right. And you guys, it's interesting that you mentioned safety, because Crystal, had when we were in our chat, had mentioned safety in dating. And so I know, DJ, you're married. Nick, you're about to get married. Crystal, what is your relationship status, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm single and looking to mingle.
Okay. So talk to us about, you mentioned safety in dating. What is the concern for you as a trans woman for safety in dating?
First and foremost, it kind of goes off of something someone said earlier. I don't remember exactly what it was. Because trans people are seen as exotic, we're seen as collectibles. People don't necessarily want us for what we are, just for the experience itself. We're a fetish.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when it comes to safety, I will not meet up with anybody like this the first couple of dates. I go wash face, I go boy body. As uncomfortable as it makes me, I would much rather be uncomfortable than dead. And it's a way to kind of weed out the fetishizers and the people that are actually in this. Because when I go to bed, I don't look like this when I go to bed. It's too expensive to leave this on my pillow. So, like, it's now I have so many subconscious things that go through my head anytime I think about meeting anybody. Like, when I first came out as trans, and when I first entered the gay community, I thought all of these China Gibsons and other trans girls of color that are being murdered, I'm just like, the only thing I can think of is they're not telling people. So I make it very upfront and honest. I am what I am. If you don't like it, you can fuck off. Excuse my language. I'm sorry. I think I've said that like 12 times. But anyway, so when it comes to dating specifically, I have downloaded so many different apps to let my friends and people that I care about know, hey, I've even screenshotted them. So those of you that are talking to me, yes, I screenshot your stuff. I screenshot it and I sent it to Mama A. I sent it to my best friend. I send it to all of these different people, and I'm just like, if something happens and you don't hear from me by the end of the night, this is where I am, and this is who I'm with. Now, if they send me fake pictures, that's one thing, but you can't fake a phone number. It all goes back to you somehow. So it's you have to protect yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to find a way to be comfortable in yourself and around others without worrying about all this stuff. I still, to this, even though I live in Tacoma, out of the 4 states that are on this, or 3 states, excuse me, because I think, anyway, it doesn't matter. I think Washington is one of the more progressive. I still don't go out full face unless I have someone with me or I'm not going to be out long or whatever. Part of it is I feel because I still have that Birmingham mentality in my head. Like, you can't walk down the street like this. You can't. If you do, you have to be completely done. Like, you have to pass or you're going to be called out. You're going to be followed. Just the other day, with the masks, you can't see much of anything now because everyone's like, well, you can't see. Anyway, I was walking home from Papa Murphy's and somebody followed me the half mile to get from Papa Murphy's back to my house. And it, in the back of my head, the first thing that pops in my head is I'm China Gibson now. I'm Candy. I'm all of these girls that have died just for living their life. And it's not fair to any of us.
Right. We're going to table that because we will be having a part 2 of this topic because there's really just so much to delve into. So I'll connect with you guys offline. And then hopefully the next time our other guests can join us, because I just feel like there's so much to cover. And just looking at my phone and the comments, like, this information has to get out. And if this is the platform or whatever platform, I want to do that. So before we wrap up, I want us to think of or imagine that young person, that young questioning person who, no, I'm not even going to say questioning because that's part of our alphabet. So you have a young person who is coming to terms and coming to understanding that they're transgender. They're confused. They don't know, how to manage this. What would your advice be if you're talking directly to a young person? She said, we need to continue this conversation, please. So it's definitely something that we will continue. But in closing, what is your advice to that young person who's like, man, I want to have the courage to be like DJ or Nick or Crystal? And we'll start with you, DJ.
I actually have an adopted son that's trans, and he's going through some things, but he's a little different because he knows who he is too and everything. But for the people that are really confused and all that, just stick to your guns, hang in there, get the best support group that you can. Even if you're having these questions or you're living stealth or whatever, tell somebody, find somebody that you can trust and talk to. Try to find an elder. I guess I'm an elder now at 40. So
yeah, we all elders now, honey.
Well, plus, I mean, at 35 years transition. So I mean, hey, yeah, you have to find a good support group. You have to find people that are going to be there, so you're not in your room trying to kill yourself or anything, drink yourself to death or whatever it is. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of you don't feel that self-worth that you need to. Get a support system, or you can get on they have those Facebook groups like anything else. Get on a Facebook group and see what everybody else is talking about, because it might be along the same lines that you're going through. Talk to people that are older, talk to trans girls, talk to all kinds of people. That's what you need to do. You need to be informed and knowledgeable so that you can help manage yourself and talk to other people who have been there and have they've self-helped or whatever. They'll be able to give you all the advice that you could need. So that's what
I appreciate that, DJ. And if anyone, I did just have DJ's website there. This is his portfolio website. He is a photographer. If anyone would like to reach out to him, this is his email address. I encourage you to utilize us as a resource. So if any of you have questions for DJ, you can reach him at vvmedia@photographer.net. That's vvmedia@photographer.net. Crystal, what advice do you have for that trans girl that's just like, I want to have the courage to live, to be Crystal. I want to have that.
Find the help and find the guidance, but don't allow yourself to be don't let yourself get obsessed. When I was in my self-discovery, like there were 3 or 4 day spans where I didn't sleep because I was researching and looking and trying to it's so overwhelming at times that you lose the sense of who you are in trying to find who you are. Right. And especially living in the South, it's a bitch. Like everything is against you. Everyone is against you. And you have to find those small little niches of people, I said niches, not bitches, of people that legitimately know that basically that you can trust. If it's another trans woman, it's another trans woman. If it's a trans man, it's a trans man. If it's your preacher, it doesn't really matter who it is. Just find them first. Don't do anything that is going to hurt you. The black market silicone, the black market drugs, all of that shit, it's terrible for your body.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's so many side effects to all of it that you will not see coming.
Now, if someone wants to connect with you, Crystal, how can we connect with you?
The easiest way is Facebook.
What is your name on Facebook?
Crystal Cassadine. Krystal, then Cassadine, Cassadine.
So if you would like to reach out to Crystal, find her on Facebook at Crystal Cassadine. So thank you, DJ, and thank you, Crystal, for being on tonight. Nick, that young trans man is out there like, man, I want to have the guts to be like Nick when I grow up. What do you tell him?
I'd say that, you know, some of the problems we have as trans people, some of them don't go away, and it does get easier. And part of that is that you build a lot of resilience and you learn how to live with the things and like be the best version of yourself. And I also agree with what everyone else said too. So
I appreciate that. And if you want to connect with Nick, his website is here. It's nicksellick.com, NIKKSELIK. So as we begin to wrap it up, I just want to thank my special guests, DJ, Crystal, and Nick. Also, I want to make sure that you remember to check out IKP, who is our LGBTQ artist spotlight tonight. He just released his single last Friday, so go give that a listen on SoundCloud. Also, just to remind you again that my 5-week signature mentorship program is starting next Monday, and it is a 5-week mentorship experience where we're showing you how to unleash your unicorn power and walk in next level confidence. So if you have any questions about that, you can go to overthetopliving.com or you can just message me here. Next week, we have a very exciting show. In fact, I'm going to put it up on the screen. I should have had it ready, but I'm going to put it up really quick because we have a very exciting show for next week and an amazing panel of guests. If I can find the flyer. Oh, here it is. All right. So next week, we are doing a show called Over the Rainbow, and it's going to feature parents of LGBTQ folks. So we have my coach, Chandra Brooks, who is a TEDx speaker. She's also the author of Black, Brown, and Political. We have Dr. Timone Davis, who was my freshman religion teacher. And she is also a professor at Loyola University in Chicago, Illinois. We have Todd Kane, who is the author of There's No Truth in Fear, Hide and Seek. And we also have my mother, Dr. Gina Franklin Liverpool, who is an entrepreneur. She is a PhD in philosophy and educational leadership. And I'm really excited to present this show. So again, next Wednesday, right here, we're going to be talking to parents of LGBTQ folks. And what's really interesting about Todd's story is he identifies as a gay man. So there's going to be a very unique perspective of him coming out later and navigating all that. So I'm really excited to have all of our special guests on. Hopefully the following week after that, we will do our part 2 to the T in LGBTQ. So we're going to sign off. Does anyone have any parting words before we head out?
No, I think we're good.
All right.
Stay safe and love each other. There's all this bad energy going on in the world, so that means you guys are taking it out on each other. Please don't do that. The only way that we get anywhere in life is if we teach other people and learn how to listen and learn ourselves, because that's the way that the world evolves as a people.
That's right. And like I tell you guys all the time, you're the shit. So get up and act like it. You already know who it is, but you know I don't mind reminding you, it's your best friend, your good Judy, your next door neighbor, your niece, your cousin, your nephew, and most recently, your great auntie. My name is Norman J. Liverpool IV. Special thanks to my special guests, DJ, Crystal, and Nick. We'll see you next Wednesday for another edition of What's the LGBT?